Okay, welcome back to Giant Conversations post-draft show. And we're very sorry about the technical difficulties here. We even hope that this is recording as we're doing it. But as you can see, Kevin is in Istanbul. And although you can't see it, I'm calling from Rio de Janeiro. So the Giants are traveling well. And I've got my usual turban on. And what would you call that on the top of your head? Is that a fez?
It is a fez.
Okay, that's what they
It
call it. They
was
call that
the
a fez.
it was the traditional headdress during the Ottoman Empire, and now it's worn exclusively by tourists for the most part. But it's a symbol of Istanbul and Islam, the larger, greater Islam community in general. At least it was before World War One. But after Turkish independence in 1923, the fez was banned by Mustafa Kemal, who is known more ubiquitously as Ataturk, who is kind of the national hero of the Turkish Republic. He's kind of like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin rolled up into one. He's on every
But
doc.
he's the one who did away with the fez, though.
That's the one mistake he made, in my opinion.
Except for the tourists.
Except for the tourists.
Yeah, well,
so
it's like being in Mexico. The tourists always are buying this sombrero, but I've never seen anybody actually wear one of them in Mexico.
right. Yeah,
Something like that.
But I find it pretty fetching. So every once in a while, I'll just slip on my fez and go out.
Well, I think it would be only right that the next. I think it's only right that the next Giant game we go to, I'll be wearing my Sikh turban, of course, because I'm a Sikh, and you can be like a Fez wannabe, and I think we would look really good together. I think it goes. It's
I
a
think they were.
very nice match with your Giant jersey, I may add.
Thank you. Yes, and behind me is not the Hudson River. That's not New Jersey and New York, but that's actually the Bosphorus Straits in Istanbul. And unique to Istanbul is that the city is separated into two continents. On the left side is Asia, where my wife grew up, and on the right side is Europe, where most of the tourist attractions are, and where the Ottoman Empire had their headquarters for 1,000 years. So it's if you get the opportunity, it's a wonderful place to visit, and we're heading there tonight. So I'm still in Boston, but we're heading there tonight. But a lot has happened since our last conversation, which I think was almost probably 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of new players. We have a lot of new coaches. And, I'm in general pretty comfortable with what the Giants are doing, primarily because of the coach. I used to hang on every word, every article, get mired in the minutia, but I still follow the Giants, of course, closely. But I don't worry about a lot of things that I used to, because I have just this trust in John Harbaugh, and recently, and we can talk about the draft in a second, but he was being interviewed after the draft, and somebody asked him, "So what are you going to do with the pass rusher you just drafted? We already have a bunch of edge rushers." And he just said, "Oh, we're going to play him at a linebacker." And it just said how it's striking the disparity between him and Brian Dable. Right? Brian Dable would never say a thing. Right? He'd cloak that response in secrecy. From probably from his time with Belichick. I don't know, but it was just refreshing. The guy just told the truth. So we're going to use this guy here. Now, what are you going to do with the tackle? Oh, we're going to move him to guard, and he's going to play guard. And a few years down the line, he may go to tackle. Everybody knows this, but Dable, who I liked, uh, could never bring himself to just open up and say what everyone knew was true anyway. So that's just one other refreshing thing, a small thing, but something refreshing about Harbaugh.
I have to, I hadn't thought about it, but I'd have to agree with you on both counts. And it kind of reminds me back, when I was a lot younger and they had good teams under, Parcells and George Young. Uh, and I still was following the draft back then, although it was not the cottage industry it is now. And I remember, well, they know what they're doing. So what do I know? But then they started so bad the last 10 years that you're questioning every minutia about the player because you really don't trust the people choosing the players. So I think I agree with you on that. And then also, yeah, it's kind of I don't know whether Harbaugh is revealing everything, but the last coach was annoying. It was annoying listening to that. You're an adult, and it's like it gets to the point that I stopped listening to these press conferences because it's a waste of time. You know, um, of course, we had Joe Judge, and that was kind of entertaining, especially at the end. Just see how he was melting down,
This
and
this isn't a this isn't a clown show.
yeah, this,
Turns out it
when
was the biggest
when
clown
when
show.
when it is a clown show, right? Exactly. Uh, but I think the way that Harbaugh is talking press conferences is what you would expect a professional to talk like, and and the other stuff was just like infantile. There was no reason for it, and why am I even listening to this? He's not going to say anything. So,
Yeah,
and what's he hiding? I mean, like they're vying for the Super Bowl here? Are you kidding?
yeah, yeah. What are they going to do
So
with their third string tackle? I mean, that's privilege infinite. That's serendipitous. Seven. You know,
serendipitous,
no, no,
surreptitious,
surreptitious. That,
surreptitious
that,
is correct.
that's what I
That's
meant. It's
correct.
early. I'm still in Boston. It's early, so forgive me. But
What do you?
just about
What
the
do you?
draft and just about the draft and in general, it was interesting to see 350,000 people at the draft. Uh, and I'm harking back to when I got out of college in the early '80s. I moved to Oregon, and I had a bunch of buddies there, but were really into football. And one of them, Steve Johnson, he's from Birmingham, England, great guy. Uh, he's got the head the size of a German Shepherd, a big guy, really big guy. And he used to have us all over for a draft party on Tuesday morning. I think it was. The draft was on Tuesday morning on ESPN. you know, and we used to. There was like six of us, and we used to fill out who we thought would be selected in the first round for each of the teams, and we'd have a little pool, and we'd you know, uh, watch the draft, figure out who got the most correct, and then we go golfing. That was the draft back in the early to mid '80s. I mean, it was it was up against Good Morning America and reruns of F Troop, and now the draft's bigger than you know the World Series. It's just amazing how it's grown and how the NFL's been marketed and how it's drawn in so many people. Man, it's a miracle of modern marketing, you could
Well,
say. But
I think it's one of the things that led to my demise in my job at the time. But I have to admit that I used to call in sick every year. And they're
yeah,
going, and to the point that the boss is going, it seems like you always get sick about this time of the year. It's in April. So I
yeah,
just said, well, it's the change of seasons.
yeah. Well, in
And
recent times, recent times, hiring I've been calling in sick the day after the draft. You know. So what did you think about the draft
yeah, we were
in
gonna
general?
talk. Well, you know what? I think that uh, again, unlike recent years, I think you almost have to look at the draft in kind of combination with people they've gained or lost in free agency and trades and things like this. Because I didn't quite see the connection in past years, but you can see that they kind of have a plan. And it's interesting the players who they lost and the players they kept. And we talked about this the last 3 or 4 years, especially the first draft of the Shane and Dayball regime. I'm thinking they've got to rebuild this team, and they're basically selecting midgets. They're selecting these like quick little players, but they haven't established they could actually compete at the line of scrimmage, which we're used to. And so I think you look back to their first year, and they really drafted guys that I don't think were appropriate for where they were at. And now it's like you can see that he's trying to build a certain type of team. So he's building. They look like they didn't pursue guys like Robinson and Flott. I'm sorry, and Flott. And I think they would have liked to keep them, but I think they're moving on from that kind of player. And it looks like they're trying to establish kind of a physical football team, which I like. And I think it started in free agency. They kept they kept the tackle they had. That was their biggest need. And then they kind of let go the players that I don't think were in the mold of what they were looking for. And then they got that inside linebacker in free agency. And that's a bigger physical type of player. And then we could talk about the individual draft picks. I, you know, I had this thought they could possibly get this guy Reese. I actually did. And I thought it all came down to the Jets pick. That everybody had the Jets picking him. But I had seen, we talk about, I watch a lot of college football, and I think the Jets could very well possibly pick the player who was the most sure bet pass rusher. They were looking for a pass rusher. So I could see the Jets going for this guy Bailey over Reese. And if they did that, I thought maybe the third and fourth picks, third pick went the way I thought it would. I thought that what was it? Who picked the running back? Arizona. And I think they picked the running back. It's kind of like when the Giants picked Barkley. I think he was probably the best player on the board, but they didn't have an offensive line. I think Arizona's kind of doing the same thing. And I think Arizona is trying to put butts in the seats. They're trying to get an electrifying player. And he was a great player, but I'm not sure that's the best pick. But I thought they'd pick him for business reasons, actually. And
Yeah,
then I
makes
thought,
sense.
the fourth pick, I didn't know where it would go. That was going to be Tennessee, right? That was
Yes.
going to be Tennessee. And you think that the head coach would have picked Reese, but I kind of got the feeling that Dable has a lot of say in that organization. And they end up going for a wide receiver who was not considered the same prospect. So they're trying to build their offense. I thought that was the pick. That's and the Jets pick. Once the Jets picked Bailey, I thought it would come down to, I thought Arizona would definitely pick the running back. And I thought it came down to what Tennessee would do. when they go for offense and I was actually surprised at the player they took though. But then when that happened, I was sure the Giants were going to take Reese. Absolutely sure. There was no doubt. And I thought they'd play him an inside linebacker. I saw him play in college, and there's no way they could have passed on him.
Okay,
I
that's
thought
good to see.
there's no way. No, there's no way they could have passed. I mean, I don't. I think the only other player they would have picked instead of him was the guy they picked at 10 or this safety Caleb Downs. But I think they would have been happy with either of those players at 5. But I don't see how they could have passed on this player. There's no way.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you watch a lot of college football. I don't. You know, I watch. You know, when I'm around, I watch it. I don't go out of my way to watch it. Oh, I did watch the national championship games. You know, the whole series, which was excellent. But I don't remember the specific players. You know, it seems like this guy from Ohio State fell to them, and it was a logical choice. And then on the 10th pick, they picked an offensive lineman, and there was this so much buzz about the safety from Ohio State. What was his name? Downs?
Yeah,
Counts?
Caleb Downs. Caleb
Caleb
Downs.
Downs. So, you get caught up a little bit in the hype, and they didn't pick him. And then, of course, Dallas picks next, and anything Dallas does, there's a ridiculous amount of overhype about. So as soon as they pick Caleb Downs, everyone's going, "Oh, he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame, and he's gonna haunt the Giants for 15 years."
Oh, he's a
And
really good. He's a
but,
really good
but
player.
that could happen, or he could be a bust. I mean, but
Uh,
I'm saying all I'm saying is not about him. It's about Dallas. It's about the
yeah.
ridiculous amount of attention and hype that they get. And I got caught up in that. But then I kind of thought to myself afterwards, became a little bit more uh, comfortable with it. I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance or something else, but I thought to myself, you know, what what percentage of the players are involved in every play on offense? And there's 6. There's the quarterback, and there's 5 offensive linemen. There's 5 other players on the field, but they're not involved in every play, right? So a wide receiver doing a run play may be doing very little. A running back during a pass play, but everybody in the offensive line and the quarterback are absolutely involved in every play. And I thought to myself, and again, may have been self mollification, but I said that makes sense. I mean, and this is, I mean, and to the Cowboys' credit, this is something they've been doing for years, picking picking offensive linemen, but picking the right ones. And they've had a lot of success with that. So yeah, again, I became comfortable with that, and the subsequent picks, you know, I don't know these players very well. Uh, you can talk more about them specifically, but having picking up a pretty highly rated cornerback, I thought they were going to take the. It seemed odd that right before they picked, somebody jumped ahead of him and took this huge nose tackle,
Yes.
uh, which was, seemed calculated to me. The Giants waved it off because they as every team always does, saying, "Oh no, this other guy was highest on our board." Well, we don't know that. And then the wide receiver from Notre Dame. Uh, I had flashbacks from Kenny Galladay, Holiday, whatever his name was. The guy could never get open, and then they said, "This is a guy. Oh, this is another great contested catch guy." And that just, they mean that to me, that sent up alarms saying, "Okay, the guy can't get open." So I don't. you know more about him than I do, and then the rest of the draft, it was a crapshoot for everybody. All 6 round picks, unless you're the mother of one of the guys getting picked. I don't think you know too much about him, but overarching, I mean, I have faith in Harbaugh, but that's my non-expert opinion of the draft.
I'm a big, we both were in Oregon for years. I'm a big Duck fan too. And, it's kind of interesting that, you know, going to a lot of Duck games and seeing a lot of these calls now that, especially since the Ducks are in the Big Ten, I get to see the Big Ten a lot more than I used to. I used to see the Pac-12, right? And it's kind of interesting. Some Oregon guys, this guy Caleb Downs in Ohio State, very highly touted safety. I actually thought the Oregon safety Tinneman was just as good, and that's how the draft goes. I think I forgot who drafted him. Oh, I think Chicago, but late in the first round, and I would have been just as happy with him. And so, there's a lot of hype around players. He was great. This other guy, the Jets picked, Sadiq, tight end. That's a player I would have loved
Yeah,
I would have loved the Giants have had chance at him. He's going to be a great player. Um,
we'll
then I
see.
also, yeah, I think he is though. He's really tremendous player.
That's what they
Um,
said about Evan Neal. So we'll see. But
yeah,
of
but
course,
the difference is this guy's a much more physical player. I mean, he is like a very tough football player. He's not as smooth athlete as what was his name? The Giants guy, I already forgot his name. The tight end. But he was a pass catcher. This guy's actually can do everything. He's a really good player. And then what was interesting, and I don't like the Jets at all. I'm a Giants fan, but it's like what teams do. It was kind of interesting. They picked 2 guys the Jets did from the Indiana championship roster who were both um, really good players, uh, but came to Indiana unheralded, but won a championship. And it was kind of interesting how they went for those players from the big programs and the championship programs. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting to me. I thought the Jets had an interesting draft, but of course I'm not a Jets fan. But I did see Reese play in college, and then I think that was a no brainer. I think that you can't have enough linemen and linebackers. So it wouldn't have bothered me if they chose another one. I can't have enough. Um, then the Giants picked the offensive lineman from Miami. But this is the interesting thing. This is why I was talking about the Ducks, Oregon, is that the ex-coach of the Ducks is what's his name? Columbo. I always call him Columbo, but that's not his last name. But the guy who was the head coach for the Ducks before Lanning he was an offensive lineman with the University of Miami in their championship years. And he built these great offensive lines for Oregon and turned Oregon into kind of like a very physical team. And he mostly got these big Samoans. For whatever reason, he had this knack for recruiting these gigantic Samoans for his offensive line. And this guy Panay Sewell, the guy who plays for the Lions, was a very high draft pick. He basically was the best offensive lineman in the country for the Ducks when he was a freshman. He was that good. And he actually came out after his sophomore year. He was that good. And this guy, I don't think is quite as athletic, but he's in the mold of the guys that uh, uh, this ex-Oregon coach has done such a good job with. And I just think that I thought when they picked at 5, they were going to pick him or Caleb Downs. And at first, I was disappointed they didn't pick Caleb Downs because I saw him play and I was kind of buying into that hype. But I think makes much more sense for them. I mean, in the end, they need to build that offensive lineup. That's more important. They could worry about safeties later on. The center of their football team is not there yet, and they're starting to put it together. And it's almost
Hurry on. I mean,
a
how how many safeties can you think about in your mind that were dominated football? I mean, I could think of two or three.
well,
Two or three.
Pittsburgh's had one. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
This guy from who plays for the Ravens now is maybe the best player on the team outside their quarterback.
Right. I mean, it's a
He's
hand. The point is, it's a handful, right? So, uh, I'm not overly, uh, I'm not overly concerned about missing out on a safety.
well, the
But
Giants
that was it,
apparently
and
had him.
he could be one of the handful. But it's not of it doesn't keep me up at night.
Well, the the Giants had him very highly rated too, I think. But if the only question about this guy from Miami was that he's got some back problems. Now that could be a problem, but I doubt they would have drafted him at 10 if they had real concerns about it. So, especially at that position. But I thought that's a pick. That's a pick that a lot of people had them taking him at 5, not at 10. So I don't think this is a huge shock at all. Um, and I agree with you that I I thought that they were going to get that up Ohio State interior lineman. Um, and I just thought he was going to fall to them. And then as soon as I saw there was a trade, and I knew what was going to happen. Without even his name being announced, because um, somebody was going to want to have him. To me, he was a pretty good player. He's not in the caliber of the guy they just, Dexter Lawrence. He's not in that caliber. Um, I think and if you saw the press conference with Shane and Harbaugh looked very frustrated after he picked the guy they did, and maybe he was frustrated at Shane for letting that happen. Who knows? Uh, but that's another area they're very weak in, and so they could really use a run stopper. That's a priority, but they need help on the back end. Uh, the guy actually in college who was the much better player though was this guy Hood, his teammate. McCoy, he was a much better player. And he was projected before the last college season. I saw him play as a junior. He was projected as being a top 3 or 4 player in the whole draft. He was that good. He was the number 1 defensive back in the whole country. But he injured his knee before the season started last year, did not play last year. And he dropped all the way, I think, to the 4th round. But if the guy recovers, he's going to be the better of the 2 players. But that's an example of them not taking a player because of injury. On talent, the guy would have been there. But from everything I've heard, the guy they drafted is a good prospect. And they need bodies. They traded for 2 guys last year. Neither of them really panned out. So
Well,
they're
we'll see
weak.
how they hand out with the new administration.
Yeah, and you know what? I would also say that, as far as the new administration is concerned, um, I think that may have also had to do with why they didn't draft Caleb Downs. I don't think they've given up totally on Nubin. I think the coaching back there coaching on the defense has been so bad that it's hard to really the last couple of years their coaching has been so terrible that it's really hard to say because some of these guys were very good prospects and they're going to use them differently. So I already heard that they're going to use Nubin differently than the past regime did to play more to his strengths. And we'll see what happens. But he's the kind of player it wouldn't shock me if he lands up to be much better under the new regime. I think, and
Oh,
they still have on the roster guys like Hyatt and Deontay Banks, people like this, the center, all these guys or Evan Neal, more surprisingly, guys who did not play up to their draft status. And I think it would be kind of interesting. It wouldn't shock me if one or two of them actually emerge as a pretty decent player. I think the coaching has been very bad. And it's hard to understand how they even made the playoffs 3 years ago. Maybe
well,
they
Deontay Banks, I mean, the first thing Hardberg said was, I'm looking for guys that are football guys, eat, drink, sleep, football. I mean, I can't think of anyone that's a bigger antithesis to that than Banks. I mean, he seems disinterested. So
well, this will be his last
I'm
chance with
surprised.
the team.
Yeah, no, right. I'm surprised to some extent he's not gone now, but you can see he has talent. You can see him returning kicks. He's a very good kick returner. He's fast and he goes right through the middle. I mean, there's not a lot of hesitation. I know, and that doesn't seem to translate to uh you know his work at cornerback or his attitude in general. But we'll see what they can do with that. I can understand why they would keep him. He's on, still on his rookie contract, and he's he's an athlete for sure. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's cut or traded. So, what did you
Yeah,
think of the
and
receiver? What did you think of the receiver from Notre
oh, the
Dame?
receiver. And he's really the last one to really talk about because they didn't really have another draft pick till later on, right?
Well,
So
they
I
did.
don't
We
think
talked
they did.
about those people's mothers, Harinan. Be a little bit respectful, okay?
Did they not have a fourth or fifth round pick? I'm trying to
No,
remember.
we traded those to go up to the third round.
Right, right. Um, I, I think that he's an interesting pick. He had a very bad combine. He was slow. He didn't. I mean, he basically did not perform well. I think that knocked him down. Everybody said he was the best player in the Senior Bowl week. Everybody said and then he was horrible with the combine.
What did he
Uh,
have a bad hair day at the combine? I mean,
he was just dropping passes.
oh,
He was slow.
mm.
His time, all that. But he didn't even catch that many passes for Notre Dame because they really didn't have a passing team. They had a running team. I think he caught like 35 passes. He just really was not that great. But I saw film of him and he's just a very tall, big guy. And you're talking about Kenny Galladay and contested catches. That's what he's supposedly good at.
Well,
But I
Harinan,
think that,
I'm a big tall guy. Put me in, coach.
yeah, well, maybe that was your calling. You're tall and slow. I'm short and slow.
I'm very slow of foot, but I have almost no endurance. Those are traits you don't see much in the modern day athlete. But,
I ran a couple times the Portland Marathon. I don't know if you knew. Actually, I think one time you saw me. I was at the end of the Portland Marathon, and I came to watch a Giants game right after the Portland Marathon. I went right to Champions.
Yeah, I
and
remember you
right from
I remember you I don't think you showered and our table cleared out. I remember that.
I think I still had that like metallic thing they give you at the finish line, but
Oh, yeah.
that's the last time I ever ran. By the way, I
Wow.
never ran again in my life. Never, not even 50 yards. It just messed my knees up.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's the way to go out. I had a friend I grew up with, Baby Bri, you might know him, and in 1991, we played the old course at St. Andrews, and he said, "It'll never get better than this, so I'm not gonna play golf again the rest of my life," and he hasn't. So that's kinda you and your marathon. You and Baby Bri have more in common than you would have thought.
I wouldn't have thought that, but we have that in common. So anyhow,
So
and
what
I
do you
think
think
the
about this
giant.
receiver? I mean, what do you I mean, you have you seen him play? Do you
You
do you
know,
think,
I've heard people say that he would be their like second receiver, but I don't think he has enough separation. If you watch him, you can go to YouTube. They have like film on him, and you could see that he doesn't even get that much separation even at the college level, right?
listen, Harinam,
Uh,
when I go to YouTube, I'm watching giant conversations, okay? I don't know what you're doing, but that's what I do.
when you finish with the giant conversations and you and my other podcast where you're saying, then you're free to check out
Ooh,
these other videos because that's it was an interesting videos of him on YouTube. It actually showed every one of his catches last season. There weren't that many, so they could do it, right? There were like 35 of them. And
it
you
was a
would see
YouTube
you
short. It was a YouTube short of all the sketches from last year. Great.
Yeah, I know it was I just saw it. I'm in Rio right now. I'm watching on YouTube here in Rio. So I actually saw that. It caught my attention. And you could see that even at the college level, even against not great teams, he had very little separation. And he's not going to be outrunning anybody. You could just see it on the eye test, just watching, right? And then it's going to be even tighter coverage in the NFL. But on the other hand, on every pass, he was able to come down with it. He actually had really good hands, showed really good hands, and he's like with his arms, he's like a foot longer than anybody covering him. So if the quarterback throws it up there, he gets it. He was a basketball player. And so he looks like a power forward. He's a big, tall guy with good hands. And I I don't see him as being a full-time uh second receiver, but I think that he's going to be the kind of guy that catches a lot of touchdowns and he's going to um let drives. He's not going to have a lot of long plays, but he's going to basically be a good guy to get the first down, to get the touchdown. And and I think that they need a guy like that. They don't really, again, all their receivers are on the shorter side, and now they're going. I mean, essentially, they replaced Wandale Robinson, who's a very short guy, maybe 5'8", with a guy, I think he's 6'4". So there's a tremendous difference in size. And so, and
Harinam,
I heard,
I'm actually 6'5", but I'm more like 6'10" with the Fez.
all right, but you're not good at blocking. You're just good at receiving.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's true. With the
I'm a
Fez,
cream
you're
puff.
6'5".
I'm a cream puff. I mean, I'm not going to block anybody. Go in there, I could break a nail. I mean, who's going to take that kind of risk? I know I'm not.
Everybody says he's actually a good blocker, and so they're looking for
Yeah, good.
this
I mean,
kind of player.
we'll see. The Giants had a guy like him, Harris Barton or something. What that? You remember that guy's name? They drafted him like 7 years ago. He
No,
was hurt.
I think you're talking about it was a tight end. I think you're
No,
talking
I
about.
don't think so. I think he was a wide receiver. I could be wrong. I have to have my stat team look that up. They're in the wings. So, pulling up all the statistics that we need to make this show credible. But he had a weird name. Began with a B, got hurt a lot, and then he flamed out. We can dedicate our next giant conversation to him when we
Harrison
find out.
Bader Harrison Bader played center field for both the Yankees and the Mets.
Well, it was something like that. I forget his actual name, but it was he was billed the same way as this guy. So, but we'll see.
But
We'll
there,
see. We'll see what happens.
but you know, it started with Jerry Reese just getting very cute, picking these very athletic, nimble guys who really weren't football players, and that really depleted the talent of the team over the years. And it just seems now that they're getting back to just wanting to pick big, strong guys and win in the trenches, and they're going to be playing a different type of ball. They brought in this huge fullback. They've got a tight end who can block here. They got a couple of tight ends who can block. They got wide receivers who can block. They're starting to draft and bring in these offensive linemen. It's going to be a lot of they're giving a lot of guys second chances here this year, hoping that at least one catches. They got Evan Neal. They've
Yeah,
got this guy from Baltimore who was a first round pick who never worked out for Baltimore.
yeah,
And they are even bringing back the Zuda, which kind of shocked me. But
yeah. But I mean,
basically,
these guys are not going to make it out of camp, half of them, right? But I mean, why?
right,
I guess why
but
not?
they have nothing to, basically, Harbaugh, I think when they came out of school, thought that had some talent, and he's got some feeling like he's going to bring out the best in them. Maybe he will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the Giants as constituted now, and you look at where there's still improvement opportunities. I mean, you go to the defensive line, right? But I, I don't. I think the defensive line you can kind of get by if you have just a competent rotation. I don't think you have to have you know an absolute dominating player. I mean, that's nice if you have it, but if you have six guys who can play half the snaps and are fresh and can just kind of hold the fort down while the linebackers clean up a lot of stuff. I think they could be okay there. Now I think they're short of those six guys, and and they're sure to add some. And this might not be a completely finished painting by this year, but I think a rotation of guys is I think is a technique that I've seen be successful, and I'm not overly worried about that. I'm kind of more worried about the secondary than even the defensive line, and but like you said, we have Harbaugh and. Yeah, I have faith that he's going to get the most out of the people that he has. So you also mentioned you're in Rio de Janeiro, uh,
And
and a shameless plug of your other podcast, the Khalsa experience,
Warrior
Warrior
Saint.
Saint Culture Experience. But so I know, and you've been traveling now for a couple of months, and uh, I definitely want to hear a little bit about your experience, but just a slight diversion. Going back to Baby Broadway, uh, his brother Brucey uh, was his wife became a kind of executive at Xerox, and they got sent to Rio for 2 year assignment, and they lived through the first Carnival, but they weren't up for the second one, so they gave myself and my friend Goo. Uh, this is in like 1996 or 7. I can't remember exactly. they gave us their beachfront apartment on Ipanema Beach for Carnival and hooked us up with all their Brazilian friends. So, just what a unique opportunity and an experience. It was just wonderful. The Brazilians are interesting, fun-loving, spectacularly unreliable, but not people. But some of them are. But I shouldn't say unreliable. I shouldn't say unreliable. They're casual, and
Yeah.
and the casualness that we wouldn't accept, in the Northeast or other places, is accepted there. So, that's
Exactly. I've already experienced that for
so.
sure.
But what a town! That's
It's a
quite a
great
town,
time.
and
No, it is. I'm gonna be here 5 days. My only regret is I didn't plan to stay here longer. I've been here before, but I forgot how much there is actually to do here. So we're gonna go
yeah,
up today. Me and my wife are gonna go up to Sugarloaf, which I'm
yeah,
sure you went to while you were here. So it was
we
either
did.
going up to Sugarloaf or, Christ the Redeemer cable car up there. But I
Oh,
think actually
are you are
that's
you
hot.
are you
That's
converting?
higher.
Are you converting, Harry? Now, what's going on?
Well, that's the place to go to convert. They do baptisms up there.
Okay, hey,
They
why
actually
not
do,
taking
right?
a
Just in case.
baptism? You're only there for 5 days. Taking a baptism. Yeah,
Well, you were brought up in the tribe there, so
yeah.
that's your tribe, right?
Kicking and screaming, I might add. But yes.
So no, but
Well,
I've been to
you were
both
also brought
places.
up in a you weren't born a Sikh either. So we both
I
have
had my own. We have tribes that we came from. Yeah.
that's right. But you've been there for a couple months in South America. And I think in the our first joint conversation episode, I mentioned that you were a Midland celebrity in South America, and it's good to see that's continuing. You're you know pandering to your fans
It's
in the
been,
South.
you know what though? It's been really amazing. We've been me and some other people who are it's almost like a kind of you call almost like a missionary trip, but we've been in um we started over a month ago in Chile, and we've been in Chile, um, Uruguay, a couple places in Argentina, and now we just finished up our commitments in Brazil. Just a tremendous experience, just unbelievably. And between the pandemic and me having the health crisis I had a couple of years ago, I actually haven't done this in a while, and now I'm 74, and I'm trying to move around like I was 54. It's well, you'll see in a couple of years. It's harder to get my bones around than it used to be. It really is. So, I used to. You're probably that kind of tourist. I'm here. I want to see everything in one day. I'm running around. I actually can't do that anymore. I have to be like satisfied with seeing like one place a day and just chilling out, having some cappuccino and pão de queijo. My favorite. The cheese bread is great here. Pão de queijo. And
Oh.
I try to learn some Portuguese for the trip, but it's not working out as well as I hoped. In the end, nobody can understand me, so it's discouraging. But I gave it my best.
Now, by the way, just one thing. You said it was like a missionary trip. I didn't think the proselytization was one of the tenets of the Sikh movement.
No, that's really interesting. You say it, and so and it's no. Not only is that it's the Sikhs traditionally are very universalist. It's very universalist faith, and actually respects everybody, and does not attempt to convert anybody. In fact, that's against the tenets of the faith. Is that
Right.
we don't proselytize, but then on the other hand. We're just kind of bringing awareness that we exist and what we're about, and then people can use that information however they like. I think that there's a it's trying to find the space between not sharing what you know and pushing it on people. So I think there's a point between the two. So on the one hand, we're very careful about trying to push anything on anybody because we don't believe in that. Um, and we respect what everybody's doing. And on the other hand, I don't think it would be wise to withhold stuff that could be of help to people. So it's somewhere in between. So this was, let's say it's not missionary work. Let's say it was an educational, it was an educational tour. And if they, and hey, if they're not interested in spiritual development, we could also talk. We could talk Giants football, right? So that's.
Barely, barely, but yes.
So you see a lot of Yankee hats here in South America, but not a lot of Giant T-shirts.
Yeah. Well, you see Yankee hats everywhere.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's actually you see them in China. It's really amazing. Even people who
yeah,
it's iconic. Even people who don't know who the Yankees are proudly wearing the Yankee gear.
yeah. I was in Madagascar once, in the capital, and I saw a guy wearing a Giants jersey. So I went over and got my picture taken with them. Uh, I I I don't believe he followed the franchise very closely, but he just happened to have a Giants jersey. Another guy, I met another guy. He was wearing a Oneonta State shirt in in Madagascar, and Antananarivo is the capital there. And yeah, I don't know where these guys have picked up this, but I don't remember seeing him in the on campus when I was there. But the ubiquity of the Yankee hats also uh, a little disturbing to me. And I'm not a great fan of the franchise. I respect what they did, but I know you are, uh, and I respect what you do. But no, I get over it. It's just
Well,
an iconic symbol. It's an iconic symbol, and for good reason. It's an iconic franchise. I'm
I'm
just
seeing that. I'm
again, I'm
seeing that
petty. I'm
Fez.
I'm immature. I'm petty. Just like we mentioned before, and things I just even in my advanced years, I can't seem to get over. But anyway, like I mentioned, behind me is the Bosphorus Strait, and you know, I went to Turkey for the first time in 1996 and was lucky enough to meet a Senna when I was there, who became, we've been married now for 23 years. I actually met her in a Turkish heavy metal bar, if you can believe that. I
I
don't know.
can believe you were there. I have a hard time believing she was there, but
Oh, Senna likes heavier music than I do generally. She's really getting into industrial music lately. Bands like Frontline Assembly and Nine Inch Nails, and she likes that stuff. But that was in 1996, and I've been coming to Turkey since then. We're going tonight. We go 3 times a year, and I'm just a 6'5", kind of pale looking Turk at this point. What I usually say is "Eşim Türk, bu yüzde 51 Türk'üm," which means my wife's Turkish, so I'm 51% Turkish. And the Turkish people are usually pretty surprised when they hear a guy who looks like me say something. So they usually hug you and give you tea. But her, it's been it's like my second country. And her parents were wonderful. They treated me like they accepted me. I mean, I showed up at the door at the time. I was 34 years old, and I had shorts and a leather jacket and hair down my shoulders, and they didn't blink at all, and always felt welcome. They're like second parents to me, and uh, so it's a big part of my life. So and fortunate, and I'm very fortunate in that regard, and I'm looking forward to going tomorrow for a couple of weeks.
all right. Well,
And we can,
we'll have to join you sometime.
you and I have to dedicate an episode at some point in time to our wives and how we met them, and what kind of how lucky we are and how special they are as people. But
Well, I think they call
this is
I think
draft time. No time, not time to
right.
talk about personal relationships. This is time to talk about you know who's going to control the line of scrimmage. But
And as they say, that's why they call this the off season. It's the off season, so we'll be able to devote episodes to our wives. Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
called the off season. So
yeah,
hey, listen, have a great trip and safe trip. I'll talk to you when you get back, and
yeah,
we'll do the wives episode maybe next.
yeah,
As football season hits a low ebb in the spring after the
yeah.
draft, and hopefully both of us, especially me, I'm kind of like. Doing this by the seat of my pants today. I'm just in the kitchenette in my Airbnb here in Rio, and so things are not working like they're supposed to. So we apologize to anybody watching it, and just give us a break. Next time it'll be definitely its usual, more professional look. God bless. Have a great trip,
You
and
too,
listen.
Hernan. Safe travel.
As you mentioned, now that there's a new regime in with the Giants, we can travel without any angst, the knowing that business is being taken care of back in New Rutherford, right?
Exactly.
Okay, buddy. Take care. Godspeed. Have a great trip to Turkey. We'll see you when we get back.